How are your nerves handling this one, Dolphins fans? It's Saturday morning when I'm recording this, and it's that nervousness, it's the excitedness, and it's like, man, it's super early on Saturday. How am I feeling like this already? But man, when your team puts you in a position where you're battling for the number one seed in week 17 with just two regular season games remaining, that's how we're gonna feel. And it's beautiful because it's later tonight, Saturday night. We get a little bit of that appetizer. We get that Lions Cowboys game, and then we turn around. We get that 1 p.m. game. So it's like you don't have to sit around and wait all day. So part of me is sort of glad that hey, we didn't flax this Dolphins Ravens game. Let's just get it done with. Let's get that win early on Sunday so we can get this feeling of just pressure. How do you guys feel? I just feel like this pressure, like, whew, we got to get this one. We have got to get this one, Dolphins fans. So that's what we're doing today. It's final preview and prediction between our Miami Dolphins on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to discuss latest team news, injury news. We're going to hit on viewer questions that were submitted throughout the week. We'll end with our final score prediction, but that's where you come in. I got to hear from you. First, if you haven't gotten subscribed yet, please make sure you are doing so. That would be fantastic. Also, let's hear your final score predictions. Go ahead, drop them in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation leading up to game time. And since I didn't get to a recap for that Cowboys game last week, missed out on giving a couple of shout outs for some really damn close score predictions. So real quick, Dean Grisham predicted Dolphins 23, Cowboys 20 off by a single point. Sandman went 24-21 off a total of 3 points. So those deserve some recognition, some pretty close predictions there for Dolphins, Cowboys. But let's jump into everything. As always, the full injury report is going down on the scroll. A couple of things we want to chat about. As we've known going into this one, Jaylen Waddle is out, officially ruled out with that high ankle sprain. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk more about the wide receivers and playmakers that are going to need to step up in his absence. So as we also reported going back to last week, Robert Hunt is doubtful this one, but we mentioned at that point in time, it was going to be week 18, likely at the absolute earliest that we were going to see him potentially anyways. So we'll see how things play out with him and his healing process, and then whether or not the team really needs his services for that week 18 game against the Bills. So we'll see if we do need to rush him back, bring him back for week 18, or if we can save him for the playoffs. Let's talk about Javon Holland. It's been a while. It's been since Black Friday since we've seen this guy. He got in limited practice sessions every day this week. He's officially listed as questionable against the Ravens. I was personally told as of Friday evening, he's at about 75 to 80% sure that they're going to have him play on Sunday. And man, would it be nice. Our defense has been okay without him. We've also had some suspect play without him. Be nice to have more athleticism on the field when it comes to playing a guy like Lamar Jackson, which we're going to talk about here. Like I said, we've got some viewer questions. Thanks to everyone that submitted one. We had a pile this week. Sorry to any I didn't get. Keep pushing them through. I try to get to as many as possible every single week. First one in from Chris. Should we use Duke Riley as a spy on Lamar Jackson? Yeah, I just talked about how we need as much athleticism, speed on the field when you're going against a guy about Lamar Jackson's caliber. I was told that if Lamar Jackson starts escaping the pocket, making plays with the legs, that yes, it'll be Duke Riley that likely gets the first crack at serving as that quarterback spy role. The only thing is he's going to have some other important assignments as well. Remember how he's really filling in for Jerome Baker right now while he remains out. So they really don't want to relegate him to being a quarterback spy only, but it is part of the game plan for it. So yeah, that's definitely something that we can keep an eye on. Question coming in from RF Gain. Which previous Ravens loss shows the best way for the Dolphins to win on Sunday? So they've lost to the Browns, the Steelers, or the Colts. We joked in the comments of the previous video about how giving me a homework assignment. But man, I actually enjoyed this homework assignment because it really kind of shed some light on a couple of those losses. And my answer is really going to kind of highlight something that I didn't really see coming. Because the Colts loss came week 3. The Steelers loss came week 5. 2 losses early in the season. The Ravens have gone 9-1 since. They've won 5 in a row since their last loss to the Cleveland Browns. Now, if you look at game by game how that worked, the Steelers only put up 17. I think we're going to need to score more than that. I don't like their blueprint. The Colts took them to overtime They were super balanced offensively, but man, they gave it up to Lamar Jackson on the ground. 14 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The game against the Browns came back from 14 points down in the fourth quarter. They won on a field goal as time expired. In a roundabout way, it's sort of how we beat them in week 2 last year with a huge fourth quarter comeback. So quite honestly, I don't really like the idea of having to come back from double digits in the fourth quarter either. So I sort of think my answer is you got to create your own blueprint as to how to beat this team. Maybe you take components from each of those. However, if I'm going to pick one, maybe the blueprint that the Colts put out there, they didn't allow a single pass catcher to go over 50 yards. Yeah, they gave it up to Lamar Jackson on the ground, but all their other running backs totaled 85 yards on the ground. So they kept everyone else sort of in check. And they had pretty damn good balance offensively. Balance is one of the words of the day you're going to find out in this video. 44 passes to 35 rushes. So at the end of the day, like I said, probably the Colts blueprint, but we have got to carve our own way. We've got to find our own way in this one. I combined these next questions from all one word and Sweet Leaf. Who has the edge defensively? How many sacks are we going to get against Baltimore? If you look at this statistically, man, we are looking at some really good defenses. I knew these defenses were strong, but man, it has just been on, especially lately. Statistically, total yards allowed per game, Dolphins third, Ravens fifth. Slight edge Dolphins. Points per game, Ravens first, Dolphins 13th. Edge Ravens. Passing yards per game, Ravens 6th, Dolphins 10th. Slight advantage Ravens. Rushing yards per game, Dolphins 5th, Ravens 12th. Slight advantage Dolphins. Both are really damn good statistically across the board. But the thing is, these numbers are a little bit skewed because if you look at the season-long averages, well, the Dolphins were playing without Jalen Ramsey. And ever since Jalen Ramsey has returned, I should have added those numbers too, but they're super impressive in regards to points and yards allowed per game, especially in those passing yards per game. And our run defense has just completely flipped the script following that first game against the Chargers when Austin Eckler kind of just tore us up. So the numbers don't tell the full story, but this one it's a great question. It is a tough question. I'm going to give the edge likely to the Ravens in this one. They're only allowing 16 points per game over the course of the entire season. That's pretty sustainable. That's a pretty good measuring stick right there. They're super physical. Kyle Hamilton, he is listed as questionable in this game. He's become an absolute baller in just year 2 in the NFL. They're solid on all 3 levels. The defensive line, the linebackers, and the secondary. Put it this way, if we perform at a high level offensively in this game, I'm going to feel pretty damn confident about the Miami Dolphins offense, regardless of who we play throughout the NFL playoffs. Let's go on to the next one here. A popular name recently. Sandman with the question, will we see more Chase Claypool with Jaylen Waddle out? And then the other wide receivers banged up. And then is a more balanced offensive attack more feasible for this week? So, yeah, I kind of talked about that balance, the word of the day, balanced attack in this one, that Colts game. But, yeah, establishing the run early, making their edge rushers and their linebackers respect the threat of running and opening things up for Tua is going to be huge. Because, like you said, we're missing Jaylen Waddle. We're playing with a dinged-up Tyreek Hill. We need them to respect that run game to the point where those linebackers are staying close to the line of scrimmage because that's only going to open up that space. Our offense is really predicated on space. So you keep those linebackers closer to the line of scrimmage, that's going to open more space around the middle of the field. And that's where I think we can really eat, but that's not going to come to fruition if those linebackers are able to get depth and not really have to respect our run game. So yeah, we're 100% going to need some sort of level of balance. In regards to Claypool, man, talk about like the ultimate mystery on this team. It sort of feels like Cedric Wilson's been more of the primary beneficiary when Tyreek's been out, when Jaylen Waddle's been out, when one of them's been injured. So I would sort of expect more Cedric Wilson production than really anything else, especially in regards to Claypool. However, man, they've been talking so much good in their pressers recently about Chase Claypool. And I actually asked my connection with the team as well and said, yeah, I mean, it might not happen this week, but there's a short-term and a long-term plan in mind on this team for Chase Claypool. Mike McDaniel likes what he offers and brings to the table. So yeah, we haven't really seen much of anything yet, but there is a plan there if things can click mentally. This is an offense that takes a while to learn and understand and grow in. Chase Claypool's been here for a while, but relatively speaking, it really hasn't been that long. So I don't know if we're going to necessarily see a ton of output this week. Maybe he gets a little bit more look in the red zone. Maybe we switch things up there. But as of right now, I think the primary beneficiary of Waddle being out, likely Cedric Wilson. Let's go into this one. Easier or harder matchup if we face the Bills in the wild card round immediately after playing them in week 18? Benjamin with the question. And yeah, this is a great question. Unfortunately, it's a little bit hard to answer right now because I think a lot depends on what we end up needing to play for in week 18. Because if we win this week and we can solidify the number 1 overall playoff seed next week with a win over the Bills, yeah, you go for it. You empty out the playbook. You do everything. You treat that like a must-win game to try to get that number 1 seed. And then guess what? You got the bye. You don't have to worry about playing back-to-back games. You don't have to worry about playing back-to-back games against the Bills. But if the Bills were to lose this week to the Patriots and we lose to the Ravens, we're already guaranteed the division title. With that said, I think there are probably some scenarios out there where, yeah, you turn around and have to play the Bills again, wild card weekend, probably depending on numerous results. I'd have to go back in and check. So I really think that the amount of your game plan potentially in that week 18 game, it's just too much in the air. So I'm not quite sure what you're going to show in that, but I'd say that end of the day, Miami probably has the advantage because, one, we're already locked into a playoff spot. That weight is already off us. And we would currently hold, at least currently, any sort of home field advantage, whether that's in the playoffs. Obviously, we play them at home week 18. So I think we have a little bit of advantage in that sense. So like I said, I didn't give you the greatest answer on that one, but it is a very interesting thing to see how results are going to factor as to whether or not that game is super meaningful. Let's do another one here. Like I said, we got a lot of really good ones this week. Alejandro, are you concerned with potential turnovers facing this Ravens defense, specifically with their ability to get their hands on the ball at the line of scrimmage? So it was actually brought to my attention from one of the viewers that last week was the first time this season the Miami Dolphins went back-to-back games without committing a turnover. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty alarming. We did have a turnover on downs against the Cowboys, but no interceptions, no fumbles. So if you look at it statistically, we're actually on our best run of the season when it comes to protecting the ball. But man, we talked about that Ravens defense. They got 16 interceptions so far this year. They've recovered 9 fumbles on defense. This is going to be a test. There's no other way to put it. This is going to be a test, and we're going to have to protect the ball while at the same time not being afraid to toss it around because, yeah, that's our strength. We want to occupy the middle of the field. We want to take shots downfield. With shots come turnover opportunities. There's no way to put it because with that said, can we survive a turnover in this game? I think so, but I don't want to try to survive multiple turnovers or turnovers that reduce in points defensively for the Ravens because that on the road against the 12-3 team, it might be a little bit more of a concern at that point. So yeah, definitely a concern of mine, but I do like the protection that we have seen of the ball over the last few games. Over the last 4 games, Tua has thrown no interception. So yeah, he's been on a nice little heater here, protecting the ball, at least in regards to turnovers via the air. In regards to batted balls, it's a great point because the Ravens are good at that. And with the Dolphins likely to get the ball out as soon as possible, Tua gets rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds on average per play. They might have part of their game plan being, hey, we're not going to be able to get to him that fast. Maybe control your rush and get your hands up and try to bat the ball. That could be part of the game plan. The nice thing is Tua, despite his size, he's not obviously the tallest quarterback in the world, has never had a huge issue with balls being batted down. I take us back to the old Ryan Tannehill days, and he was like prototypical quarterback size. Man, that dude got a lot of balls batted at the line of scrimmage. Some guys just have that. Justin Herbert gets a lot of balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. But I think Tua has kind of used his size throughout his career to his advantage. Be like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to make that pass. I need to find a window. And he sort of mastered the idea of finding these windows. So it's not as much of a concern for me just because of what Tua's done in the past. But at the end of the day, yeah, that could be part of the Ravens game plan. So we'll have to see how the team will move forward with that. All right, let's jump into the prediction. Like I said, thank you to everyone that submitted questions. I'm sorry for those that I didn't get to. Let's do it, Dolphins fans. 28-24. I don't foresee anything about this game being easy. We talked about it. The Ravens are 12-3 for a reason. We're playing at their pace, at their place. Lamar Jackson, MVP worthy candidate. We have one as well, but man, Lamar's been on a heater right now as well. Not to mention how solid their defense is. Like I said, at every single level, like we talked about earlier. But the B word is the word of the day, the balance. If we can make sure that the run game is something that we don't abandon and that we can rely on for getting that, 4 to 6 yards on first and second down. That has proven, those 4 to 6 yards has proven to be huge, absolutely huge for this team, for this offense. Look at last week. We had so many great drive starting plays. That's what I'll call them, drive starting plays. So many first down plays against the Cowboys last week. It really helped our offense just move the ball downfield on a consistent basis. But what was the issue? Well, we kept having to settle for field goals. So if we can do a lot of the same things that we did last week, but then extend those drives to the point where touchdowns are the result rather than field goals, I like our odds in this one. As you can see from a score of 28, I don't have us kicking field goals. I have us ending drives with 6 this week. Let's go 28 points. Let's go 3 passing touchdowns, Tua. Let's go 1 rushing touchdown, Raheem Mostert. And by about 4:30 p.m. Sunday, we are the number 1 seed in the AFC playoff picture. So that's what I've got. But like I said, let's hear from you. Drop your final score predictions in the comments. Carry on the conversation leading up until game time. I'll be back at some point with a recap this week. We obviously have New Year's, but we don't have Christmas. So I don't have to do any traveling this time around. But that is my time for today, Dolphins fans. Thanks as always, and fins up.